Hello, everyone. As I mentioned last class, I did want to talk about the Whigs, the Whig Party. And so the Whig Party is going to establish. Remember, we talked about how the era of good feelings brought about single party rule. There was just the Democratic Republicans. That's it. Jackson's going to take over the Democratic Republican Party, and the Democratic Party is going to split soft money, hard money, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of friction going on in the Democratic Party, and Jackson is pretty much, he just turns the Democratic Republicans into just what they call the Democrats, and that's it. But there were lots of other people still floating around, like the old Federalists. They didn't exactly change their minds. There were people who were much more nationalistic, not states' rights kinds of people. There were some people who were extremist in their states' rights point of view. All these people are just not fitting in with Andrew Jackson. And of course, there were those people that just absolutely hated Jackson, couldn't stand him, and just didn't want to be part of the Democratic Republican Party anymore. And maybe the most prominent of these people was this guy, Daniel Webster, very handsome gentleman, Daniel Webster. He's maybe the most prominent Whig. And they took their name Whigs. If you remember, when we talked about the American Revolution a few months ago, the Whigs from the Revolutionary time period, those were those people that were anti-king. And they took the name Whig, the Whig Party, just the existence of this party called Whigs, and their name was a protest, if you will, against Andrew Jackson. So just by them calling themselves Whigs was really an insult to Jackson and Jacksonites, because they referred to Jackson as King Andrew, and they saw Andrew Jackson trying to make himself almost like a king. The Whig Party was the most prominent, as I've talked about before, in the North, but there was some Southern Whigs as well. This guy here, there's Daniel Webster. And so a lot of reformers were involved in the Whig Party too, people that really wanted to see our government do a lot more for different groups of people. We're going to talk more about that later on. We're going to do a little project on it. People wanted to reform the way public schools were tended to, what schools were about, making it more accessible to people. There were people that were involved in the temperance movement who became Whigs. Temperance, if you remember, is the idea of getting rid of alcohol. They believed that alcohol was a major cause of a lot of social problems in America. And of course, those people that were opposed to slavery for all different reasons, but really specifically the Whigs were more those kinds of people that were opposed to slavery for moral reasons. Democrats, non-Whigs, didn't really feel that school should be something that government got involved with. They thought that should be something that, families, local towns, whatever, should be making those decisions. But the Whigs felt there should be some sort of national standard for schools. You also had all those Clay's American System people. And although Jackson was, opening up more loans for people, of course he didn't want to, there were lots of people that were trying to to get Clay's American System up and going again. And there was a natural come together between the reformers and the Whigs. So the Whig Party worked out really quite well. I'm going to jump ahead a couple things here. You can look at this slide if you like, but I'm going to jump ahead to the next election, because it's going to be in this next election that the Whig Party are going to put forth their first candidate. And so you can take a look at this, but this is just a summary of what Jacksonian democracy is all about. And there's going to be a slide here about de Tocqueville. We'll talk about this a separate time. I'm going to do a separate one on Alexis de Tocqueville. But in the election of 1836 is when the Whigs are actually going to get their first presidential candidate. But unfortunately for the Whigs, they can't get their act together in time for the election, and they have 4 presidential candidates, and they're all going to split the vote if you can't figure that out. And so Martin Van Buren is going to run as the Democrat. But they run 4 different people. They don't have a nominating convention, the Whigs, and they just can't decide. So here's how it goes down. They are going to put out these four people: William Henry Harrison, whose name you might recognize. He's going to become president at some point, not yet. This guy, Hugh White, Daniel Webster, and this guy, W.P. Magnum. And if you add up all four of their votes, they actually get 49% of the national vote. So the Whig Party, right out of the box, they're first. It looks like they don't do very well because Van Buren, he gets 51% and he wins easily because he destroys all four of them. But collectively, they're all Whigs and they all kind of have the same or similar platforms. So not bad for the Whig Party. And the Whig Party is going to they are going to get a president. But it's going to take a little bit. So there you go. Really interesting tidbit, trivia, is that Martin Van Buren was the first American-born president. How is that so? All presidents have to be American-born. Well, what we mean by that is that he's the first president to have been born after 1776. And so you think, okay, well, all presidents after this will be all American-born presidents. Well, that's not true because William Henry Harrison is going to get elected president. He's going to be the oldest person elected president. And he's actually born before 1776. So he'll be the first, but then it's going to go back a little bit. So there we go. Actually, William Henry Harrison's the oldest person ever elected president until Ronald Reagan came along, and then again until Donald Trump came along. So, all right, there we go. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's staying healthy, and stay tuned for a few more. We're going to be finishing up this chapter very soon, and we're going to be having a quiz next week on chapter 13. Not quite sure how we're going to do it yet, but we'll work it out. All right, so stay tuned. Bye.